Welcome everyone. My name is Sanjeev Jain. I'm your host today. Welcome to this hopefully very interesting and exciting session on winning with generational diversity, which is a topic which has remained controversial, will remain controversial for ages to come because we always have, every generation thinks they are the best and there are some, differences compared to the generation younger to them or older to them, and this tradition continues. So, but I think today is why we brought this topic today here is it's very important topic from the workplace point of view, and historically in this time is historically very important because in certain parts of the world, we have at one point of time 5 generations, as high as 5 generations working together. And some of the places, not everywhere. In India, probably at best 4 generations working in most of the cases together. But I think the dynamics, the scenes are changing, and it brings its own complexity, dynamics in terms of the challenges it brings at the workplace and the opportunities, of course. And today, to discuss that, we have, three great experts, I would say, and we were very mindful of bringing people from different generations. So let me first introduce the my panelists here. So the first one, let me introduce Minal Pandey. Minal, are you on camera?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Minal is the youngest in the panel, and she is HR manager with Webtech, which is G Transportation, a Webtech company, call it, and she has about 2-3 years of HR experience. She's already an HR manager, doing extremely well, and she comes from Bangalore, and her focus is she's providing complete HR services as HR partner to the set of people who are into technology and engineering, right? For with Webtech. Correct, Minal? You want to add anything to that?
Absolutely right, Sanjeev. Just for because probably adds value to this discussion. I've been working since my college days with a lot of big names. I've worked with startups. I've worked a lot in general, and that also gives a lot of perspective on how different organizations, maybe startups or even those which are legacy organizations, how they work. And of course, I work a lot with old age homes, orphanages, giving different perspective of what it looks like to be privileged versus non-privileged and what work might look for them. So hopefully I'll be able to add some value here.
Perfect. And I don't know if many of us know today is a Senior Citizen Day,
Oh,
21st
yes.
August, right? I did not know about it, to be honest. And someone sent me a message, hey, Senior Citizenship Day. So I think today is a very right day, actually, from various reasons
Absolutely.
to have this discussion here. All right, welcome Minal, and look forward to hear your views here. And then let me introduce Geeta, Geeta Khattar. Geeta, welcome. I know
Thank
it's
you.
a busy time for you, but thanks for taking out time. And Geeta,
Absolutely.
briefly, if I introduce, she's more than 2 decades of work experience, work with great brands like HCL, and today she's with working with DLF Group. And she, in her role, is a very senior role, very responsible role. She's taking care of learning and talent management for DLF across different verticals, which is a huge role. And she has done similar roles in other organizations like HCL and Xerox, Philips, and she has worked with great brands. And I personally met her a few times. I'm, pretty impressed with her thought process, very mature, very evolved. So Geeta, we look forward to hear from you on this topic.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you for inviting. And I'm so looking forward to this discussion, especially with the brands I work for. I hope I can value add with some experiences which I had. And also, I think, as Mrinal also mentioned about the other side of professional life, I'm also part of certain communities which are like sports communities, which includes multi-generational people. And I think I would love to add some experiences from that perspective also. So looking forward to the discussion.
Perfect, perfect.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, let me introduce Shishir. Shishir and Geeta is joining from Gurgaon today, just to. And let me welcome Shishir Tyagi. Shishir Tyagi is a part of HCL forever. I mean, how many? 20 years, Shishir, right?
Yes, yes, Sanjeev, heading towards 20 years now.
Wonderful, wonderful. I mean, complete. I mean, most of his work experience has been with HCL, which is great actually. I mean, it's a testimony that you're doing wonderful. Organization is giving you great opportunities, and you're doing making best of it. So good luck for further 20 years to you and more. So Shishir actually has been a strategic HR partner mostly. That's what the role he has done. Today he's performing the role of uh, uh, you call it people practices leader for ASEAN, for North Asia, Middle East, and certain geographies. He's based out of Singapore, and he's joining us from Singapore. And I'm sure with your global experience, we'll get some insights on how is multi-generational diversity issues in India and other parts of the world. How is it seen? So we'll learn from you. So thank you very much for joining in.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Thank you for the invite, and definitely looking forward for a lovely conversation.
All right. Let me also introduce my friend and partner Sushil here. He'll also be a part of the discussion. He's joining us from Bangalore, and that's briefly, introduction to the panelists, and briefly about Enabling World. Enabling World is which I represent as a co-founder and director, and Sushil and myself and the team. It's a boutique HR consulting firm. We are celebrating 12 years. So thanks to all the partners, colleagues, friends, and customers who have helped us and supported us with for your blessings and best wishes. We briefly, in 30 seconds, we focus on HR consulting, leadership and talent development, DEI, and this is the topic in the center of it, is in DEI. And today we are talking about it, and we do a lot of work on employee well-being and bit of HR and outsourcing services as well. These are a lot of things to do for a small organization, but since we are in solutioning, so we do provide services around all these areas. All right, so let's get into the session straightway, right? So let me start the session. Vijay, you can maybe stop sharing. All right, so let me start with a personal experience. And I was just, when we were getting into the session, I was thinking, where did I face those challenges of multi-generational, different generations coming together? And I could not but miss my beginning of my career. I joined a manufacturing firm in UP, Aligarh. There was a factory in Aligarh. And I was just 22 years old. And I was given responsibility of becoming the department head for a section of the personal department for a British company in Aligarh. Imagine, right? And the way I reached there, the moment I reached, I was welcomed by my section in charge, Mr. Chandramani Sharma. I remember his name as well. And he welcomed me. He said, "How old are you?" I said, "Sir, 22 years old." He said, "I'm here section in charge for 25 years. And, my son is older than you, right?" So I said, "Okay, I'm going to learn from you." I mean, that was the welcome I got. And clearly it was a non-acceptance or a, obvious and very vocal rejection that come in. I mean, you don't have that experience that I bring. And I was in a very, very awkward situation. It was tough for me. It took me a few weeks and months to find my way, foot on the ground, and be able to gel with them and share what value I bring. And I had to really work hard. They also had to work very hard to accept someone as young as that as their uh, section in charge. And I was very, very new, right? Without almost maybe Menal as your experience level, right? I was there just first job. So that was my experience. I'm sure we all have such experiences at the workplace as employees and as HR leaders or business leaders, whatever your role is. I'm sure we are all facing it every day. So today we are going to discuss. This topic is complex, but some elements which would be important for us as HR partners, as HR professionals and business leaders to understand and learn from the experts and each other, and let it be very participative and interactive, right? Whosoever in the audience feels like contributing, please feel free to jump in and contribute. And so that's what we're going to do, right? So let's begin. With your permission, Geeta, Shishir, Minal, do we have your permission to begin?
Absolutely.
Sure, Sanjeev.
All right. All right. So let's begin. Geeta, let me start with you. Uh, First thing first, we all know generations X, Y, Z. Can you, just to set the ground, level ground, and set the tone, share your perspective, just a brief on what are different generations and what are their key characteristics? I mean, these are stereotypes. I mean, I know that's not the rule, things may change, right? I may be baby boomer, but act like a Gen Z. That's I may do that. But typically how we understand. Can you do that for us, if you don't mind,
Absolutely.
so that we
Absolutely.
are on the same page and then we get going?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, it's a good way to start so that we all are on the same page. So let's start with baby movers who are born from the year 1946 to
Thank
1964.
you.
I think this set of population is more resilient. They are very disciplined, I would say. And as we started our conversation, very set of very loyal people, they value hard work. That's what I've seen. And most importantly, they really seek stability, and stability is something which I've seen that this set of population continue for years in the organization. So that's the core. Then we can move to Gen X, which is 1965 to 1980 born. I think this is a very independent lot, which is very self-reliant. That's what I can say about them. And then moving on to millennials, which is one of them is me, 1981 to 1996 born. Very tech-savvy people. I think we are like in the cusp of it, the way we evolved, from notebooks to everything getting digital. So very tech savvy people, socially conscious, and I think this set of population is also seeking a lot of work-life balance. That's a key characteristics. Moving on to this, we have Gen Z, which is 1997 to 2012 born, and I think these are digital natives basically. Their life has started with handphones, and they continue being there most of the time. It's a very diverse lot, I would say, and I see that they have a lot of entrepreneurial characteristics as well. So these are four gens, and I think in the current setup also, as if I would say that in my current TLF as an organization, I work with all these four set of gens. And even if I look back, I think all the organizations I worked for, be it Sony, be it Philips, be it Xerox, I worked with all the multi-generational set of people. So looking forward, I hope this sets the context and everybody comes on the same page on the understanding.
Perfect. Thanks for reminding us. Thank you very much. I think so. Let's get on. So, Shishir, coming to you, one, this is what the textbook says, or this is what generally we understand the generations, right? But in your view, you're working in a global environment. You work into multiple geographies in your role, and you travel quite a bit. What is your perspective? Is it global? I mean, in terms of the characteristics, behavior, expectation, or the issues of different generations across different geographies, are they global in nature, or there are some regional nuances, right? Like Gen Z of US, or the baby boomer of India, for example. I mean, how different it is?
So, Sajeev, I don't really think that there is going to be majorly any difference in the characteristics when it comes to cross
Okay.
borders. So, I think probably a Gen Z of Asia Pacific or India would behave the same way as probably a Gen Z of the Europe or the Americas. Uh, the so that's about the Gen Zs. Yeah, I would say that the difference would be there in the mindset when it comes to the baby boomers, or even to a certain percentage of the Gen X. Because I think that has got more to do with the working style and the kind of environment that you are living in. But yeah, I think when it comes to, I think talking about the Gen Zs of the today's world, I think there is no difference practically across any country, any continent. So that's what my personal
It
experience
is
is.
on Gen Zs. Or what about other generation, like Gen X? Do you find, I mean, what we see as a characteristic of a generation, will it be similar? I mean, you're not talking about Gen Z. You're saying typically all the generations, typically their behavior will be similar by and large, with some regional nuances, of course, will be there. Geeta,
Correct.
would you like to
Yeah.
comment? What's your personal experience?
Absolutely. I think it lot depends on it may differentiate. So first answer, I would say that different countries may have different impact on how people are brought up. So for example, let's talk about cultural differences. Let's say if it is Asia or Africa, so the community part, the family, the values, here it will be very high, you know. So how the people are brought up, their thinking, their mindset, as Shishir mentioned, that's going to be very different. Unlike if I'm talking about US or a European country, there it's not so much about community. It is so much about my personal achievement. It is so much about independence. So that actually entirely changes the outlook, and you know, how the interaction and how the communication happens between different set of people. And so is about how the political condition of the country that might impact how people are brought up, how is the technology access in that respective region. I think there are a lot of perspective that, you know, different generations may have as to at what stage that country is in today, whether it is a developing nation, is it a developed, or is it really poor country. So that's really going to make a difference in my view.
Correct. And I think when I was reading more about it, uh, the reason why a Gen Z behaves the way they behave, or a baby boomer behave the way they behave, it's an outcome of our experiences, the way we are growing up, right? Our
Absolutely.
socio-political
Correct.
situation, economic situation, the way we were brought up. I
Absolutely.
think that drives a lot of our behavior. And if
Totally.
there are differences in different geographies, stark differences, that may influence to some extent how the generation, different geographies we are. But by and large, the characteristics remain similar all across
So,
the globe, right?
yeah.
Shishir, that's what you're saying. So, Minal, coming to you, your view in terms of, we have, you know, in the books, hard bucketed, oh, this is Gen Z, and we label sometimes, right? Sometimes we don't know whether it is good or bad, because these are stereotypes that we sometimes have in our own mind. What's your view? Are there major differences within the generation, like within Gen X? There are some noticeable differences that we should think about and do something about it, or they all behave the same? Because it is hard to believe these are hard buckets. I'm sure it's a continuum, right? But for logical sake, for convenience sake, we have created some boundaries. But I'm sure this is a continuum, not a hard bucketed thing. So, are there differences within the generations? What would those be?
Yeah, so Sanjeev, I think you've there's an answer in the question itself. And you've described it really well. But the way you put the question, it just the literature mind just a little bit wandered. And there's a saying that Mark Twain says that
Mhm.
all sorts of generalization are false, including this one. So it just my brain went there. So of course, generalization cannot be done. While having said that, as a group, these different buckets of as people are born, they have experienced so many different things. And as Geeta was
Yeah.
saying, be it socioeconomic background, the political changes, somebody, the generations we are talking about, there are people who might have experienced the after effects of the World War II. Somebody might have experienced what it looks like to have something like COVID. Maybe the future generation will not experience that.
I
And
wish they
as a
don't,
group,
and I wish they don't.
yeah, I really
Absolutely.
wish they don't. But as a group, it does impact. We saw 2008, the crisis that was there that hit US. These things, or when there was a attack that happened, in the US, these things
Correct.
do make an impact on generations.
Mm.
So, is it a continuum? Yes. But are there broader aspects that might frame somebody's mindset? I would say yes. So we have to be very careful about what are these characteristics that Gita defined in the beginning, but also the individual characteristics of their own social and economic background, the educational background that one is coming with, the geographic are they living in urban India or urban globe, or are they coming from the rural side? The technology that they are well versed with. Today, the generations we are talking about, everybody is to some extent used to technology. We are four of us here, we are all using Teams. But who is more efficient? What can HR do? What can leadership organizations do to, bring all of these generations closer? It's a very personalized. It doesn't one side doesn't fit all. So that's my answer.
You're right. I remember my dad, I lost him 2 years back, 3 years back, and he was every day, I mean, almost 8 hours on his iPad. He was hooked to that. I mean, somehow he learned, and he was on Facebook. He will give comments. anyone puts a comment in the family, he'll be the first one to go and comment. Then we'll say, Papa, just slow down a little bit. It's not. But so I mean, sometimes I think it cross those barriers. So each generation is into technology. I agree with you. So I think, Geeta, coming to you, why this is important from the workplace point of view, this generational diversity. Diversity, we understand, is important for creativity, for innovation, for getting different perspective at the workplace. Difficult to manage, but if you manage it well, it does a lot of wonders to the organizations. I mean, we all know about it. Generational diversity, why is it important that we should talk about it from the work organization's point of view?
Yeah, I think it's important because one obviously it brings in the competitive edge, the set of people you bring in the current times, which are very competitive times. It's very important that we have a right mix of people. We've been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I think some yeah. So I think this is very important so that from the standpoint of that organizations can grow. I think you actually said it all. Different generations, they bring in diverse perspective, increased creativity, enhanced collaboration. While it brings in a lot of strengths also, there are certain challenges also of that. But I think looking at the strengths, it is very important, and organizations have actually seen that how this is bringing in more the growth of the company is actually an example, or that's a perspective to look at to see that how important it is.
Uh, Minal, you want to add anything, or Shishir? Because this is an important part. Why is it important for the workplace, for the organizations, first of all? So Shu said it very well for getting different ideas and views, creativity, innovation. Anything else, Shishir? Do you want to add, or Minal, you want to add?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I'll.
so the sorry, no, no, I'll
Shishir,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Go ahead, Shishir. That's okay.
All right. So, Sanjeev, I think I'll probably answer this in two parts. Number one, there's a question again back for you, but again, I'll take that as a second one. Uh, so there are two ways of looking at it. One is the inside out view, and one is the outside in view. So I think from a inside out view, yes, what we are trying to by putting together multi-generational people in one task force, yes, we are looking at the benefits, we are looking at the advantages. The outside in view is how is the company able to survive with so many multi generations, and that's what you started the conversation with. There was a time that there were five generations working in one organization. So it is more to even showcase our capabilities. It is more to showcase even our strengths to the external world, saying that yes, we are able to manage all of them. Number two, I just going back to your statement that you made, Sanjeev, difficult to manage. So I don't think that, and probably I'll have views from Geeta as well as Midal. I don't think that even as an HR person or as a team leader, it is very difficult to manage people of different generations in one team. Because I
Okay.
think most of the times I have seen that yes, there is always a kind of an acceptability from people of two different generations, that yes, there is something that I got to learn from the other person, and it is as good as even if we see at our homes. Kids are always there to teach us something, and so are we there to teach something to our kids, and I think something very similar is what I have seen at the workplace. So that was just a comment to your statement, saying is it difficult to manage? According to me, I don't think it is very difficult to manage these days.
So you're truly blessed, if I would say. But in my personal view, and we'll hear different views. And let me ask, Minal, I mean, as a
Mhm.
professional, what do you think? I mean, managing multiple generation, is it very simple? I mean, at the workplace, are there any issues, or there is no issue at all? What is your view, personal experience?
Okay, I will probably stay away from the personal experience. Reason being, I am part of an organization which has such great culture that everybody is very accepting, inclusive. It makes us feel it just so many years of experience, and I have been given a task which might usually be given to somebody who's probably coming with a lot more experience, and I get opportunities to be seated on those tables where we have regional leaders, global leaders. and I have never been made to feel that probably my opinion is not does not matter. I'm the HR
That's amazing.
leader, I'm an HR business partner, and it's what I say has to be probably respected and followed. And of course, there's a dialogue wherever there is something like that is not happening. Having said that, I'll have to bring in the generational perspective here. And that's where I say I think every generation today has some level of insecurity. Okay, a Gen Z wants to do a lot more than probably what they have seen their forefathers doing. And that's where comes the aspects of being humble, but still having those roles and being able to. You gave a wonderful example in the beginning, right? Similarly, somebody who's probably close to the age of retirement is worried about how do they ensure financial stability in their family. Somebody who's a millennial, there's a famous term called midlife crisis, right? How do you grow, but you also have your children going to college, you also have financial troubles, there's so much that every generation is going through. And that's why sometimes I would say that it's actually a strength to any organization. But there is, I could be a little wrong, but I do remember Deloitte giving a workforce study that came out in 2024, which said in general, diversity can lead to almost 2 times more innovation, more retention. All of that is what they were talking about, right? So I would say in a group, when there's generational diversity, it does lead to knowledge sharing. It leads to great problem solving, great decision making, because that comes from experience, but also leads to newer ideas. And this is very common, right? Everybody, and that's why we want
True.
generational diversity. So, yeah, I would say it's a boon when everything is managed well, but managing it depending on the industry you're in. Go to manufacturing setups, go to a place where manufacturing might happen in a rural area. It can become very challenging, and that's where our expertise come in.
I did experience that, when I started. So, personally,
Yeah.
all right. So, Geeta, any other view? I mean, in your view, as a leader for talent for such a large, old, traditionally very successful organization, do you see it is very easy to manage that as HR leader, or there are complexities that you need to navigate through?
Uh, Absolutely. So, when you look at our industry, there are three sides to it. So, one of the side is the construction, which is purely standing on the site. The other side of the business is leasing, which is still more corporatish. The third is hospitality.
Hmm.
Every business offers a very unique challenge. Uh, and if I look at the proportion, how our people are divided, I see 55% of the people are millennials with us, uh, while a very small population is baby boomers. Uh, I see at times there is a challenge, especially let's say we being a construction industry and major workforce being there. And if we also go to campus to get Gen Z, this is the set of population which is looking for work-life balance, a lot of flexibility in their work. But we will have, this set of Gen has to also understand if they choose to be a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer, and if they are choosing construction industry, then it doesn't mean working out of home. You have to be literally standing at the site. And if it is even a hospitality industry, you need to be at the workplace to actually turn around, or do your deliveries. So I think it is also very important that, while we talk about that my organization needs to have flexible work policies and so on forth, I think it is also very important that people who make these choices of being in a certain industry type, because it's very important that creating a building, for example, you need
Hmm.
to feel passionate about it. If someone
True.
is passionate about sitting in front of laptop and creating some softwares, I think even in the construction space, there is a passion about creating iconic structures, so I think that that's what we are trying to do as an industry. This year, for last 3 years, I've seen three batches here of graduate engineers and architects. That's the dialogue which we always do. So I think our leaders are also open in kind of mentoring this set of population. But I think it's also important to have that mindset that what industry I'm going to enter into and build that agility to be an expert in your respective field. So I just wanted to add that from my industry perspective, that how, but I
Yeah.
see a lot of openness. Our leaders are quite, open to building a new gem in this space, which is a very specialized field and requires a lot of expertise. In fact, DLF as an organization is also going back to its old buildings to get the best learnings so that
Mhm.
the new things can be implemented. So the entire work, if you see, requires to be at the workplace. And if someone really wants to learn the art, you really need to be there.
In the field, in the
So
field.
yeah,
In fact,
absolutely.
I was reading somewhere globally, whatever roles are there,
Hmm,
50% of the roles approximately, they cannot be done remotely. I mean,
absolutely.
Yep.
period. Globally, I'm talking about. I mean, so I'm sure and we have to be mindful to be inclusive of whatever we are talking about, all different industries. But Shishir,
Correct.
thank you, Geeta, for sharing that, and Menal sharing that. Shishir, I mean, in your view, just a check here. Globally, if we see the composition of various generations today, so where are we? Which generation? How is it split today? I mean, do you have an idea, or anyone, Geeta, you want to talk about it today? Any idea of how's the workforce distributed today globally, right? What
So
percentage of what generation?
yeah, so Sanjeev, in fact, I was going through an article a couple of days back, and I think according to that, it was said that probably, and especially referring to the IT world, and it was said that probably in the next 12 to 18 months, or probably even 24 months, more than 40% of your workforce is going to be constituted only by Gen Zs.
40%.
So
That's
40% of your headcount is going to be
that's about IT. That's about IT. You
that
know.
is about IT. So yeah, and I think given the kind of the composition of workforce that we have in terms of our banding structure and all that, obviously it's a pyramid which needs to be followed. So yeah, I don't think that we are going to be any different from what has been predicted for 40% in the next 2 years of Gen Zs. Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be that.
All right. And similar view, Geeta. Any other view from you on this?
Absolutely.
This is about
I
similar.
do not have any specific statistics around it, and I think I would go with Shishir's point.
All right. So one question in terms of the DEI agenda, right? I mean, I've been into HR space for now a few decades, and when I talk to a lot of people who are DI specialists, talent organizations, I don't hear about multi-generational diversity too much at the in the various
Yeah,
discussions, from the DI effort point of view. If it is
correct.
important, and it is important, I personally feel so, then where do we miss this? I mean, do you also see that it's getting enough attention that it deserves, at the workplaces from the DI function, from the talent function as so? Minal, what's your view on this? If you can start, and then maybe others can add. Does this
Okay.
require, does this get enough focus, what it deserves, or no?
Okay, so Sandeep, before that, on your previous question, given that we were going to have this discussion, I was just going through some numbers. And globally, if you see, baby boomers today are around 12 to 15%. And I'm going to link that to the question that you're asking right now.
Sure.
Mostly in advisory roles. Also, India as a country does have a retirement age. Many countries don't.
They don't.
Right.
Correct.
So there is 12 to 15%, which looks much lower for a country like India. And in the near future, it will become even more lower. They're right now also in advisory roles because technically they are about 60 or more,
Hmm.
even today, as we are speaking. Gen X will comprise somewhere around 25 to 30% globally. The numbers look higher in India.
Hmm.
Uh, Millennials are about 35 to 40. In India, it's about 40 to 45%. And Gen Zs are globally around 15 to 20. In India, it is again somewhere around the same number today. Now,
Okay.
why this is important for your current question, and of course, we'll in the near future we'll have Alphas starting to work, right, in about
Okay.
10 years from now. But today, all of us who are here today are preparing our workforce for today and for the future,
for the future.
right? So that's why when you talk about generational diversity not being, so we need to understand that while a lot of work and conversation is happening around diversity, as a group, there's a long way to go.
Mhm.
And that's why today we talk a lot about gender diversity, for example, is one of the key things that in India we are talking about. Okay, PWDs is probably the next, and this is not data driven, I'm just according to what I hear. And
What we
then,
hear.
yeah, LGBTQI community, still a lot of work to do, right? Today, in most MNCs specifically, we do see different generations coming together. And that's why, because we have generations already in an MNC setup, probably the talk is not a lot. We are getting the benefits of it. And that's why the conversation then shifts to gender diversity, PWDs, and LGBTQ community. Regional diversity also doesn't take a lot of focus. Why it is becoming important in the near future is because we will have Gen X, Y, Z working together,
Mhm.
right? That's, and then Gen Alphas. The needs of these, while we are all, technology was the key thing that was separate, like sort of we would define, but now everybody knows technology. There are different things that we need to cater to now. That conversational shift is going to happen today, right? We had people like Shishir who worked in organizations for 20 years who would help trickle down that culture, that purpose of why you're going to work every day. What is your bigger purpose? Why are you working in this organization with so much experience? The moment organization gets hit with those questions, as we move away from maybe millennials and more Gen Zs and Gen Alphas, that's where we'll realize how important experience, and we need these people to be in the organization to trickle down the culture. The moment that gets a hit, this will become a big discussion, according to my opinion.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a very a lot of insight, and I think very thought through, I would say. So thanks for bringing that. And I think you're right. It's not dealing with today. It's about what future looks like, and be prepared to deal with that in advance rather than just facing it on your face and not knowing what to do. Right. So let's take a question from the audience. Nilima, can you unmute yourself? You wanted to ask a question to Geeta. Why don't you unmute and ask? State if you can, if you can still hear me. So her question is that, if there is one thing about workplace to promote generational diversity, what would that be? And that is specific to
Yeah.
you, Geeta. So
Sure, sure. Thanks, Nilima, for that question. I think if I could do, it could be personalized career paths for the people, because different gens, they have different expectations from their careers. So I think really charting out career paths which are more centered around different generations and which are able to satisfy and help them grow in the organization. That is something which I would choose, and parallel to that, I think some few things which we could do to kind of bring in that change. I think reverse mentoring really works very strongly. And I've seen the change happening through that uh, at Xerox when we were evolving and we had added our IT division. That really worked. So I think these are two things which come on top of my mind, which I would like to bring in, promote the
and we'll talk
generational
more about
diversity.
and we'll talk
Sure.
more about it as we go along. But I wanted to take, and no worries,
Yeah,
Nilima, you are
thanks,
traveling.
Nilima.
Yes, absolutely. So Shishir, there's a question to you from Rashi. Rashi, you want to unmute yourself and talk if you can? Okay, let me read for, let's use this time. So the question from Rashi is that how has generational differences evolved over the years? I mean, is it a standard thing going on for ages, or there's a new dimension to this now? I mean, any perspective from you?
Yeah, Sanjeev. So I think this definitely has evolved over a period of time because I think the way importance to the multi-generational workforce coming together and working for one motive. I think this is now being discussed, or this is being given that level of importance probably in the last decade or decade and a half. I think
True.
prior to that, people were not even talking about it because either no one realized that there is actually a difference. Like Sanjeev, you started the conversation with your experience when you joined your first organization and the kind of treatment that you got. But I think no one in the organization or no one in the society probably even thought about as to whether we should really give that
Important part.
important, yeah, that difference, that level of importance. But yeah, I think now in the last decade or decade and a half, I think this is something which has definitely evolved, and the companies have started to think because, and I think the whole sole reason for that is, and I might be wrong, don't quote me, but yeah, the whole sole reason would be. Uh, how should I put it? In absence of the right word to be used, I think the Gen Zs are the smartest of all because of the access to information that they have. It
Yeah.
could be because of technology. It could be because of again the information that they are carrying, the ease of information that they have. So I think hence I would rather term them to be the smartest of all in terms of the multi generations that we are talking about. And hence I think that is one of the reasons why we've been talking about this stuff in the last so many years.
Okay, thank you. And Rashi, I hope that helps you with that very interesting question. And I think she brought another point is the hybrid working. And let me take that up here because COVID and the way the work arrangements are, the way we work, right? It dramatically changed, right, in last three few years. I mean, at the workplace as HR leaders, we have never seen such a sudden transformation as we saw recently, and we all were a part of thick and thin into it and managed it somehow. And the world, we learned different things, right, as a place. Now, when hybrid working, and that's not true for every organization, Geeta. I mean, some maybe manufacturing, no difference. It had to be at the workplace. It has to be at the workplace, right? But for
Absolutely.
certain sectors, services, IT, banking, where one could do work from remotely or hybrid working, so the world saw a very different future of work was today, right? I mean, what we thought will be maybe 10 years down the line, it got accelerated. Now,
Correct.
how did different generations, and Shishir, maybe let me ask you this particular question because you would have seen more of it, remote working, hybrid working. How did different generations, react to that situation? How did they cooperated or supported? What's your experience? And you can be candid about it.
Yeah, yeah, Sanjeev. So the difference was the moment there was an opportunity that, so in Singapore, whenever there was a gap between the two lockdowns, we used to call them as circuit breaker. So whenever there was a circuit breaker that was announced by the government, people like me, we were the first ones to run and come down to the office.
Okay.
Whereas people of other generation X or Y, I think they were very comfortably sitting at home. All so they had a different problem to deal with because every morning when they come and open their wardrobe after a shower, they used to decide which night suit do I wear. So that was a different challenge for them. But yeah,
Okay.
I think on a serious note, yes, there was definitely a difference
There's a different
in
expectation, correct?
absolutely a different expectation.
So how, let me ask you a follow-up question. How, as an HR leader or your people practice leader for a certain geography, how do you manage, or as a business leader, that there's the same situation and different generations have different expectations that I want to work like this. I don't want to come to office. Some people say I want to come to office. What does it mean from the talent management point of view, and how did you solve it? I mean, let me ask you in your situation.
So, Sanjeev, this is a problem which I don't think that any company has been able to find a permanent solution or a 100% solution to this. I think at least in HCL, in the world of IT, I know across the IT industry, this is something which is becoming a big problem.
Big
And
issue.
and I would say it is becoming a big problem at both the ends. Number one, the employees are not interested to come back to the workplace or to their physical work locations. And number two, over a period of time during COVID, the companies also had given out a lot of their facilities or the real estate. So now, if we try and make 100% people come back to work, there is a shortage of workspace in the office.
So it's
But
both
I
both.
think, going back to the question as to how have we been able to do it, yes, there are various things that we are trying to do, putting it as a part of their KPI, as a part of their quarterly appraisals, incentivizing them to with a certain dollar value, throwing a few free pizza parties in the office, at least just to encourage them to come down. So yeah, I think whatever is possible, we are trying to do.
In fact, I saw, reminded of an ad recently. I saw, I won't name the brand. It's a garment brand. And boldly, the ad came, if 5 day work is coming, then we are not. And that was the statement in the ad.
Oh,
Yes, if 5 day working from office is coming, then we are not. That's the, and it was in the
Absolutely.
ad which is coming. But anyway, so I think yes, these are real challenges that the expectation, the preferences, work preferences, and it doesn't mean, and I want to qualify here, it doesn't mean that any particular generation is not sincere about the work. It doesn't mean
it
that.
doesn't mean.
It's just
Yes.
it's just different, because I
Yeah.
want to call it out, because sometimes there can be a stereotype in our mind. Oh, they don't want to come to office. That means they don't want to work. They don't contribute. It doesn't mean that at all. They may be much more productive in lesser time, smarter generation, and they can do much effective. Just the preferences, the way people want to work. That's the only thing I want to call it out. Otherwise, there can be stereotypes around that. Okay. Now, Binal, to you, if I can ask, BRG or business resource groups or employee resource groups is one uh, institution or a practice that a lot of progressive organizations leverage as a part of their DI function, right? And I'm sure many of the organizations would have that. It is a ERG group for diversity, for gender diversity, for PWD, for various things. And I think it makes a lot of sense, because you have lot of employees participation into any organization initiatives. It makes a lot of sense. Now, coming to generational diversity, I want to know your view. What would you recommend an ERG specifically for generational diversity, focused on that so that we don't lose focus? And otherwise, other option could be, you have ERG for gender, ERG for PWD, ERG for neurodiversity. You could have, bring the generational diversity element as a part of those ERGs, right? There could be two ways. Uh, Anyone can comment, but I want to start with you. What would be your recommendation and why?
Yeah. So Sanjeev, in an organization, there are many ERGs, right? Especially global organization like ours and some of the panelists here, you'll have an ASEAN, there will be a group for the African Americans. There will be so many different, because there are minority groups, and of course we need to promote them. There is a we need diversity. They are value addition. They are our strengths of the organization. And that's why giving these ERG groups, it helps us also listen to them, promote their causes, and provide solutions by listening to them instead of us who have never experienced it and then catering to their needs. That's never going to happen. So ERGs play a very strong role.
True.
Now, with me saying that, we are talking about different generations here. Okay, today, there is a very, how do I say, there's a very complex identity of an individual in today's day and age. So if we have too many ERGs also, it might create a problem. And that's why the different diversity groups, I think, should be catering uh, to the different generational stereotypes and biases and the troubles that they are going through. But I'd like to add, in the big before I was talking about how generational diversity, though our strength, is also going to pose certain questions in the near future. And we have to ensure that we are ready when we have our experience, 20-25 years of experience, people leaving the organization. Do we have those people who are willing to do that for the organization today? It's a question. And that's why I do think maybe not ERG groups, but it's a strong question to ask. And that's why we need to have committees who are working towards strong succession planning in a different perspective. The definition of succession planning needs to change. Okay, how are we going to inculcate the culture and continue the growth for the next 10-20 years? There needs to be a focused group working towards it, while we may not need ERGs per se. So that's
Okay.
my opinion.
So I think thanks. So I think net what you're saying is ERG absolutely a great way of bringing focus and
Hmm.
different employees participation into certain organizational initiative. And I think rather than doing a focused ERG for multi-generational, sprinkle it into different ERGs which are there and make it work. So any different views, Geeta,
Yeah.
Shishir,
I
or
would.
you agree with what she's saying?
So I agree. In fact, on the ERG, I really want to make a point that,
Sure.
one is, good to do, because you as an organization will stand out that we are doing 10 different things. We are a great place to work. At times you do it just for the heck of it. So I think firstly, it is very important to have the foundation right. Why are we doing this? If there is really a vision of the organization, if there is really a commitment to create that difference, then only the ERG groups should be created, whether it is for women, whether it is for PWD. So, firstly, the foundation has to be set right. Coming on to multi-generational diversity, ERG, I do not think that we need to create such ERGs. Rather, we should look for forums wherein we can connect all the gens together.
Hmm.
And I think I want to give a very powerful example. It's a very new initiative which we have started at DLF. And I think I want to make it really successful, also, would say. And I can see,
All the best.
yeah, thank you. So, this is called Community of Practice of different technical specializations. So, what we have done, we've got people, let's say, if it is civil, the
Hmm.
structure execution guys together, whether that person is at entry level or the senior most guy. We've got them all together. They all share the purpose of bringing the best in this space, right? So you get them to talk in an informal setup
Okay.
wherein it's knowing each other, the roles. I think we are at a very initial stage wherein we've got all of them together to start having a conversation. I remember, going to my CTO with guidelines on how to set up this community of practice. And you know what my CTO did? He said, Geeta, what you have to do is you have to just get the conversation started. We don't have to have guidelines. Let it be an informal group
Let
wherein
it
we
evolve.
get people to talk, exchange how they feel, bring in more passion about the space we are in. And I think we've just got started, and I'm sure this is going to be a huge success. So I do not stand for having separate ERGs for different gens. So that's
Okay.
my point of view. Thank you.
Shishir, I hope you agree as well, or you have a different
No,
view.
no, no, Sanjeev. So I think my take is while I completely agree that probably a specific ERG is not needed, and it is not needed because most of the companies or most of the industries these days they do not have a choice.
Hmm.
So it is like, yes, when you every year when there is a fresher batch which you are onboarding, obviously, and as I said, couple of years down the line, your mix is going to be more heavy onto the Gen Zs. So then I don't think that there is a choice left for the companies to probably try and build up that culture. It is a must for them to do. And when I say that, I think there are a lot of things which are associated with that. The company culture, the company ways of working, the company policy, the company benefits, they all have to be redesigned. Because I
Very well.
think we all understand that the expectations of, and that's what we've been talking about so far, the expectation of a Gen Z is very different from what probably a person of baby boomer or a millennial age or a Gen
And it
X
should be,
would
and
expect.
naturally so. I mean, so we are not surprised. It is bound to
Correct.
be different. It
It
is
is
bound
bound
to
to
be different.
happen. And hence, I think the whole ways of working at the company has to differ. And hence, I said, I think coming back to your point, it is more as a push from the community or the society which is happening. I don't think that any ERG would be of any help in this.
Perfect. I think the intention, the the crux is, if you have mindful about it, if you are aware about the issues and challenges, potential challenges, and be sincere about it, right? I mean, just by doing another ERG may not be a solution, but having that focus in whatever your initiative, organizational initiative is important. Absolutely. So Meher has a question. Mrinal, for you. Meher, do you want to unmute and talk? If you can, you can also read that question, Minal. It's about Gen Z.
Sorry, I'm not able to go to my chat. Is it okay for
Okay,
you
so
to? Yeah.
yeah, I can read it for you. On behalf of Mihir, Mihir says Gen Z has grown up in a digital age, making them highly proficient with technology. Minal, is that a challenge for their engagement from the workplace engagement perspective? I think so sometimes, as I am from the same Gen Z. So,
Okay. So maybe personal opinion, but my opinion slightly differs here. We are talking about a generation who have created so many unicorns in this country, right? We are talking about a generation that has done, like, we get these fresh perspectives, and they are in my organization. They have done so many disclosures, patents. The amount of work that they are doing, it's brilliant to see, and it's great for India because we are youth heavy in this country, right? So I differ from that opinion. What I would agree to sometimes is that yes, our ability to focus on one task is limited, and it's the reality. It's not a stereotype. These are science-based studies that have proved it, because we have grown up in the information age where we didn't have to sit through the libraries and go through 10 books to get one information. Okay, so we are used to getting things done faster, getting information faster, and whenever there's a hindrance to that, we get sometimes anxious, and probably, depending on the person that one is, may not spend enough time to find the solution. Okay, might jump to something else and try and get easy solutions out. Is that a problem? Yes. But are we not capable? Can we get engaged and do it? Yes, recognizing the problem is the first step to the solution. So, pretty much we can do it. Also, our generation will very many times, and Geeta was saying, talk about, I don't believe in, like, there needs to be work life balance. I don't believe in, doing long hours of work. What are we talking about? This is the time we are building our foundation. Yeah. Right? Those are things that we don't have a family. Many of us might not have a family right now. Many might have families. Everybody has responsibility towards somebody in the family, be it parents or whoever they are. But this is the time that we can learn, ensure that our foundation is strong. And that is a personal realization that everybody needs to have. We need to be, if our work requires us to be in office, we need to do that. If it requires to do whatever, we need to do that. It's our age to learn. We cannot give up on that. And that is a feeling that probably as an organization we need to inculcate in the Gen Zs. Having said that, we are very much capable. We are changing the world right now.
all right. Thank you. And I think there's a comment from Anita that ERG actually is a that's a very thoughtful answer, Minal. Thanks for sharing that. And it also I'm learning also quite a bit perspective, because sometimes we get into stereotype of what people think, unless but when you listen to the generation, to the people, I think you get different ideas. So Anita, you have a great point. She's saying that ERG anyway is initiated by the employees. If there's a need, they would automatically raise hand and say, hey, we want to come together and want to do something about it. But if it's not an issue, it's not needed. Thanks, Anita, for bringing that point. Okay, so now another question that I wanted to ask was, and Shishir, I may ask this from you. What about clients? Because clients is an important part of the whole ecosystem, the organizations. That's the reason why we exist, right? To service the client, right? Does it matter to the clients at all that the organization has multiple generations in any way? Do they care about it, or it is just an internal thing?
No, Sanjeev. I think the customers are very much picky or finicky about what kind of a mix. And I'm probably just coming in from the fact, say, for example, there is a squad that you need to deploy at a customer location. The
Okay.
customers are very much particular and picky about the fact that there needs to be a decent mix. Not that they have started to command it, but yes, there has always been a softer request to have a decent mix.
Is
So
it?
yeah, that the customers are fairly picky about this nowadays.
And Geeta, from your point, thanks. Geeta, from your point of view, I mean, sometimes having employees from different generations, how does it help in your business? People may think of different needs or different generations better as an organization compared to if you have all youngsters or all maybe baby boomers or Gen X, right? So how does it help in your business for your clients?
So for us, definitely one, it's driven from our leadership. Our promoters really believe that we need to have a right mix, and hence we go to the campus also to get the fresh talent. We believe in building them as our future leaders. Coming on to the client perspective, I may not be a face on how the choices are made by the client in terms of the mix, but I can definitely share an experience because I've seen my husband working for a marketing, the WPP group. He was working out there. And I remember that when the client used to make a choice of a marketing partner, they used to be very careful with what set of, team they are going to be working with. What is the gen mix? And I remember they making some brochures which included the complete profile of the team people. So I think today depends, like may not have right perspective of construction, but yeah, this is one of the important criteria because it's a long term thing. Who are the set of people you're going to work with? What's a mix of the people? That's an important aspect, I would say.
All right. Okay. So let me ask, all of you one question, maybe one by one. Uh, would you like to, if it is okay, to share any personal experience of a specific issue or challenge or opportunity that you might have faced, which was because of multi-generational workforce? For example, any challenge that you would have faced, communication issue or not working together, or the working styles are different, and which became an issue. And how did you go about it? If it is shareable, and if you have heard, so it will be interesting. It will make this discussion more richer and on the ground. From your examples, anyone who wants to start, if you can share, I mean, if it is shareable.
I'll probably have to think about it, Sanjeev.
Okay, you said, I mean, it's working all well for you, right?
That's the reason I'm thinking.
Which
I
is your
can share an
blessed.
example.
Go
Yeah.
ahead,
So
Minal,
I
this
go
would
is
be
ahead.
not from
excellent.
this is not from this organization, but
Anywhere, and you may not name the organization, absolutely
yeah, I'm
fine.
not going to name the organization. This is an MNC that I was interning with. Okay, and as I mentioned in the beginning, throughout my college, I was interning with different companies, and I worked for them first for certain rural marketing. Of course, I'm an HR professional, but I got into an HR internship, got interested in something else. Then they were gracious enough to hear my opinion, and
Wow.
it went so well that then I was leading that project, and it was a seasonal rural marketing that would happen during certain time. I would not like to even mention the season, it will become very obvious. Okay, so seasonally they would require. The first event went so well that next time they reached out to me again and we wanted to do 3 stints of it and said, hey, would you like to lead this? Sitting in your college, we have all the network, everybody's there to support. And this was by the leader that I was working with. I got very excited. We started working on it. And then he was challenged, saying, you are getting an intern, and this is, a lot of money and revenue that we are talking about, who has done once this event happened, she was in office and it went well, and now this person has college, this person is sitting across certain kilometers, we are talking about a whole different region, this is marketing, there's budgets involved, there's regional leadership approvals required. Why should we take a bet on her while we have already started, because he thought it's gonna, it was such a
Interesting.
grand success, there's no roadblocks here. Having said that, we recognize the concerns. We have leaders in the organization to ensure that the amount of money that is being spent wisely. So for them to question it, there's no problem with that, right? But the point is the question comes without understanding of somebody's ability. That's where I think I faced that. But the one that I was working with back then, we went through an interview process, explained the entire, and that's where the organization's ability to giving a fair chance, shows. And that's what we did experience. And it went so well that throughout 2 years of my college got sponsored because I was working with them and I would receive some money and I would pay my tuition that way. But they gave me a chance. They also questioned what should be questioned. Nothing wrong in that.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's interesting. So there's a lot to learn. That's interesting sharing. Geeta, anything you want to share? Any practical,
Sure.
challenge that you had interesting that we'll learn from? I mean, your
Sure.
experience. Go ahead.
I think precisely worked for mostly global organizations and moving to an Indian organization. I think this has also evolved, but I saw that at a particular gen, maybe more of baby boomers or few, so the uh, aspect of going, going through typical requesting secretaries for meetings,
Ah,
and then, having to get through a senior leader, typically that used to be a mindset, but I think that barrier I could kind of break by bringing in more of calendar request. uh, that bit got evolved, but I think that's something which I faced as a challenge for that baby mover category to move in, or maybe that seniority aspect, you can say. That's one. And I think also at times that could be an individual challenge, which is precisely getting the attention of a person who's quite experienced. And the communication style plays a very important role here. How
mhm.
you are able to communicate and bring in your agenda, really being able to understand personality type and the preferences, and then being able to communicate your agenda and get things done. So these are few specific things, so I think we may not be, all of it might be happening in somewhere subconscious manner. We're dealing with it, but we are not really saying that, okay, this is because of age group, or, but I think it does happens in different shapes and forms at times, and
So I
we
think the
have, yeah,
correct, correct. Thanks for sharing that. So I think one I wanted to ask you. I mean, there are certain questions which I mean, don't mind, Shishir, Geeta, and Minal. Keep if you can read the questions. I mean, keep commenting on the chat
sure.
itself. Also, don't mind so that we can make best use of the time that we have. But I think what I want to ask is, Shishir, and maybe then to you others also, any deliberate in your talent strategy? Are you doing anything specific deliberate? I mean, you're saying it's not an issue, so I mean, we are not doing anything specific because it is seamless, right? I mean, you don't see that challenge right away. But to Minal, you as an organization in your talent strategy, are you doing something specific so that every generation works together, we take care of the each generation's needs and differences? For example, if I say the reward and benefits, for example, right? What matters to Gen Z would be very different than what matters to a Gen X, right? Maybe for them, insurance is much more important, right? For you, free internet at home may be more important, possibly, right? How do you dovetail in your HR strategy or the benefits or the policies so that every generation is taken care of? It's a complex thing because you can't do everything for everyone.
Yeah, before I answer that, you said it's going seamless, so probably we are not, that it's going seamless because of those HR policies that are done well for all the organizations that the panelists belong to. If not, it would have been a big problem, right? So that means that our HR policies are very inclusive, and we are in some way or form catering to the different generations and their needs. Now, to be specific, the different things that again, I won't talk about my organization again, because we do so much that maybe not everybody uh, can do, but there are certain essentials,
Mhm,
right? We need to understand that there are differences in the different generations. So, flexible work arrangement, for example,
mhm,
uh, giving the ability to work hybrid and remote. Again, I'll say everybody being in the office helps us propagate the culture of the organization. How do you do that when their experience to the organization is just one laptop? It's not easy to propagate the culture, right? And that's why there needs to be a good mix of when do you work remote, when you come back to office. Okay, we don't want people joining us remote and then leaving us remote because
mhm.
they worked for us, but there was no shared vision and purpose that they were working towards. Similarly, I'd say so flexible work arrangement and the way to do it right is very, very important.
Is
It is a
very
make or break in today's day and age. Secondly, something like a flexible benefits basket, as you were saying, one size doesn't fit all. There are people who probably need more insurance. There is somebody else who probably may need a creche, somebody else who probably doesn't need these things so much at this point of time, but might need a more, mentoring. Career is their key focus at this point of time. Internet, gym, healthcare might look very different for different generations. Okay, your annual health checkups may bring up different things for different generations. We have so much data today in the organization. We can really personalize some of the benefits for the different generations to even individuals today. It doesn't just have to go through generations. What are we doing with that data is the question. So we as HR group need to be really tech savvy, ensure that the data that is coming to us, we are trying to make the right buckets out of it and providing solutions accordingly. Like we have the Amazons and the different worlds today. They'll ping us, you have not shopped. The Swiggy will today, right? Your biryani is waiting. We need to make that's the experience they're getting in the outside world. That's what we need to provide our employees in the organization.
Correct. So super, I mean, hyper specialization, personalization is the era we are into. So I think as a at a mass scale, even if you can't go to each individual, you can create personas. I mean,
Yes.
like you talk it, different personas, and there doesn't need to be generational thing only, but various factors, right? Uh, People who are neurodiverse, their needs may be very, very different. PWD need may be different, or a young mother need is different. So I think creating personas and doesn't need to be restricted only to generations, right? That's what
Yes.
your recommendation is. All right. So, Geeta, coming to you, what binds different generations together? There must be something common, right? That we can leverage. Maybe generation X, Y, Z. What is common that keeps everyone together and we can leverage that?
I think the urge to develop, I think that is something which is very common between all these generations. And if there is, and like one of the aspects which we have been talking about, technology, that technology can even keep them connected. And also, I think not to forget about the values part, uh, which can also bind different generations together. So these are some of the perspectives, Sanjeev. I think important to have different gens in the organization, but uh, someone who's not like the first part which I mentioned about development, someone who's not developing himself or herself well will not be able to even sustain in the system,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think these are the things if you want to sustain and be there uh, in the system for a longer, then the development is something which the learning agility, if I have to put it in a briefer word, is very, very critical to guide them. And obviously, technology is something in the current times which we can't deny the importance of. These are methods.
And Mihir has made a very interesting comment that need for money is common across, right? So,
Absolutely.
so
And
that's true.
obviously
And
usage of money for different needs, as Mrinal was putting it, different
but
age bracket.
when I was reading about this topic, one thing which stands out is, which is common amongst all the generation is they think they're the best. Every generation, they
Yeah,
think they're the best, right? So I think that's common thinking across, right?
true that.
Isn't it? So, Shishir, anything else, Geeta, you want to talk about? Any specific guidance on what we can do as talent leaders, as business leaders, specific to make sure that each generation is catered to, taken care of, and we get best out of them as talent? Anything else other than
I
what we've
think
said so far?
the first and the foremost vote, and I think there's a very, because when I was working on this project, I found this saying which said that in the world of rapid change, a community of practice is your insurance against irrelevance. I think you have to, we may not talk about ERGs, but you have to get these people together. And it really works. You have to, as a leader, as a talent leader, or as a business leader, you have to create an environment wherein people are open
Open.
uh, to really be able to communicate that how they are feeling and what is that which can be done best in that industry specific scenario. Obviously you choices wishes will be 100, but then you have to really see where I work, what industry is it, and obviously leaders are open, so it's also about the organization and evolving as an organization, because at the end of the day we all get together for a common objective, that is business growth. So
What
I
I've
think,
also go ahead,
yes.
please. Please.
No, no. So I think it's very important that uh, getting people together as a community, to get them to talk, building policies around it. As HR and as business leaders, they need to have the conversation very regularly to understand how is business changing, what are the new market conditions, what is that we need to bring in for our people to evolve as an organization. These should be continuous dialogues, not just talking about business numbers, but also talking about how we are evolving as an organization and making it more employee friendly. Those are few things, because you might be able to sustain for some time, but if you are, not listening to your people, then it may not go for long. So it's a very important that to create that inclusive organization, you are listening, you are
You're listening. You're really
understanding
listening.
your organization, where we are currently, uh, you know, uh, that's something which I really want to bring in. And leadership is always a bridge builder, so that's going to be a constant.
Correct. Shishir, I want to check with you specific on the team structuring, because I've heard and in my own experience, sometimes there's a very deliberate attempt when you create a project team, depending on whatever business you are into. Maybe a project team, Geeta, in your case, or Minal, in your case, could be an engineering team working on creating a product kind of. When you create a team, one is based on the skill, you automatically people come together, but sometimes there's a very deliberate attempt that let's make sure that we have a team which is structured for various reasons. We have different, not generations, I mean people with the diverse background. Everyone should not be a Gen X, or everyone cannot be, for example, Gen Z, right? A right mix is important. We may be doing
True.
without even thinking about it, naturally we must be doing, right? So
Yeah.
in the team structuring, in your experience, Shishir, would you like to share your experience? Is it done without thinking about it, or you're deliberate about it at times when you're structuring a team for projects or organizations or the BUs?
All right. Uh, so, Sanjeev, I think for us, the most important thing is obviously whether we are able to cater to the needs in terms of the technology requirement of the customer.
Correct.
If at all, so that is obviously the
Taken
paramount
care.
thing for us. Once we have all these people in place, or probably in place to pick and choose from, we have a pool, and probably from there we can pick and choose. That is the time where we actually use these combinations in terms of having a kind of mix in terms of both generation as well as gender, because I think these are the two, and as far as advantages of having a multi-generational or a multi-gender mix in a team, definitely we've seen it all, we've spoken a lot about it. But yes, I think we definitely try and do it. Number two, as I said, yes, even these days there is a lot of push coming in from the customers as well, because
Hmm.
our guys are actually based at the customer location, so they definitely want them to be a part of their core group as well. But yes, on the other hand, there are situations wherein, because of lack of skilled people in that particular technology, we don't have a choice. But I would say that in most of the cases, rather about 70-80% of the cases, that has been our attempt to structure the team in that ways.
All right. Okay. And in terms of anything you want to say further, Geeta?
Yeah, so I think I have seen this as a part of talent management in succession planning. It's quite a deliberate effort.
Okay.
With the business leaders, it's very clearly discussed which are some of the positions wherein we can hire more females. Specifically, if I go back and look at the organizations I worked for, like Philips, hardly used to have any females at that point of time. So that used to be a KRA of business leaders. Plus,
Bring in
at
more.
Xerox also, we used to kind of, as a part of succession plans, really identify the roles wherein we can hire female leaders. And also there used to be a Wilson rule, for there was a certain level of positions which were defined that we have to make sure that as a part of selection process, women candidates will be interviewed, whether they are selected or not is secondary, but the opportunity will be given. So I think age-wise, when we talk about generational diversity, I think from the standpoint when the organizations go for campus placement, that is what the mindset is, that we have to build future leaders and have a career path for them. uh, Few efforts which are quite deliberate, but are they really really crystal clear? I think they happen over the time, but not as we start executing them.
All right. And Manal, coming to you, how should we, as maybe HR leaders or business leaders, enable a manager today? Managers has a very complex, people manager has very complex task today, right? Imagine the kind of diversity we're talking about today. We never used to talk about, right? Neurodiversity, PWD, generational diversity, gender diversity, and then the project requirements. So it's pretty complex, right? But how do we enable the superhuman being, Superman or women of today, the people manager, to be able to understand, appreciate, and deal with it, and be effective in leveraging this opportunity? Any suggestion, any good practice you want to talk about?
Yeah, so here my learning as HR business partners, our key job, we work as enablers. And the key people we are working with leaders and people leaders.
True.
So no matter how strong the HR team and the leadership is, if our frontline leaders are not strong in propagating those values and those culture and holding true to what the organization believes in, it
Stands
will
for.
become a problem. And there's something, I will take the quotation from my manager. He very well says, and of course, he must have read it somewhere, that an employee is experiencing an organization through his manager. If
Period.
his manager is creating a great experience, organization is wonderful. If not, the same organization might be difficult to work in for somebody else.
I
Yeah.
agree.
And that's why we need to, as you said, we need to enable our people leaders. Now we also need to understand that the people leader might have their own biases, might have their own ways of working, and that's what we need to first hire the right people. Not everybody is built for people leadership. Okay, they might be a people leader for 4 employees, but a people leader mindset is very different. Just because they are great in what they do today, they might not be great people leaders. And
True.
that's where we come in to ensure that we are not giving people leader positions to people because of fear that they might leave the organization. For the greater good of the organization, we need to take those hard decisions when required. Some people are meant for a individual career path. Second, there needs to be propagation of the values and the culture that we want the organization to have, and that needs to happen time and again. Over communication is never a problem. Okay,
Mm.
and that's what we need to understand with our people leaders. So here, finally, I'll take an example of what my organization does. We have a committee of people leaders. They come together every month. Okay, and it's a group of course, hundreds of people who come together.
Okay.
Now, every month, even though we are saying probably the same things in different words, we still will be propagating what are those key things that every people leader needs to do so that our end employee is experiencing that culture. There is an open house that happens every month by the site HR leader and the site leaders coming together, where we are propagating this. Any problem that happens, employee relations, anything that comes up is set. There's a compliance review that happens, and we give an example of, hey, we heard this without saying any names of people, person, where it came from. This need not be repeated. Now, of course, it can repeat, but the point is if we have experienced something from our speak up case or through an HR experience, somebody went and openly
Lessons.
talked to leader.
So I remember in my earlier organization, we used to circulate this lessons learned. Someone does a
Yes.
mistake, right? I mean, rather than you experiencing yourself by accidentally by having the same issue, we used to create something lessons learned without a name that, oh, we did something, this went wrong, this is what happened, this is how we solved it. So lessons learned kind of thing. So I think learning from the other colleagues in the organization is very, very important.
Yes.
So good.
So I'd just like to add over there, instead of we have a communication over it. Okay, we very openly in that broad forum listen to some people might not agree. And that's why it's important that sometimes your own personal beliefs might differ, but for the organization's greater good, we sometimes have to align to what is good for the organization. So we make sure that we walk out of that meetings ensuring that everybody is on the same page, and that's the communication that is going throughout the organization, not just communication, experience, culture, everything. So those are some great practices, and I believe it really helps us.
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing. So very interesting. Shishir, anything you want to talk about? Anything we should do or you are doing to enable managers or HR to
So,
manage
Sanjeev, one
better
thing, yeah. So one thing which I definitely agree with Mrinal is on in terms of the over communication.
communication?
So I think that is something that we keep on doing all the time. I know it at times becomes a burden. It gets boring for people. But yeah, I think that is something that we also have been doing quite often
Okay, very
in
good.
terms of over communicating with the employees, with the people who and encouraging them to probably come forward with any kind of a concerns that they have.
Concerns. So being supporting them, right?
Correct.
Right. All right. So I have a couple of announcements to make before we conclude. So Vijay, if you can share the screen, I just take 3-4 minutes to make certain announcements. One is that as Enabling World, we do offer certain services in the DI space, and especially, I mean, including generational diversity, gender diversity, neurodiversity, etc., different areas. And we do consulting, we do training programs, workshops, or multiple interventions around diversity. So leverage that, and there'll be a brochure in the a link in the chat if you want to leverage. Do reach out. So that is one. Second is in the coming month there will be a lot of focus on mental health. So we do as a one of the focus areas for employee well-being. We have huge offerings that and there'll be link into the chat if you want to reach out to us for any of these offerings about mental health. Is the World Mental Health Day is in October, 10th October, and this is one area whether any generation, right? It's an issue that we need to deal with, right? So I would encourage, do in your own organizations create awareness, support employees on mental well-being, but in case you need any help, do reach out to us. So these are a couple of announcements I wanted to make. We have this session will be recorded, is being recorded, and we'll put it on our YouTube channel in case anyone wants to join that YouTube channel so that you get alerts about all those interesting conversations that we're doing. So please subscribe to this YouTube channel. What you can do is you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to our YouTube channel, and then you can subscribe. So you are encouraged to do that in case you want to stay tuned on. As an example, these are some of the topics that we have spoken about so far. And Anita is here. She was a part of the discussion. Wonderful discussion on neurodiversity. Then we had a discussion on gender equity in the digital era. On LGBTQAI, we had a specific session on Men's Day. We did a session on what are the issues on men's health, because we don't talk enough about it, or empowering women at work. We also had a session on creating a disability friendly workplace. So we are committed to creating an awareness and education around different aspects of diversity. So these are some of the examples, but we have 30 plus different such conversations into YouTube channel, which you can subscribe to and listen to, right? And this is our podcast. We called it HR Buzz. Last month we had announced this. So we are live on this. So we already have one session already onto this. And by the end of, I think this quarter, we'll have about 30 such podcasts available on different topics on HR, leadership, on well-being, on diversity, on core HR, which you can benefit from. So you can subscribe to through this QR code on our Spotify, and subscribe to this channel called HR Buzz. And it is just beginning. Need your encouragement and support, because there's a lot more we need to do, and then we'll go around this. So I think these are some quick announcements we wanted to make. Now, let's stop sharing. So I think before I conclude, I'm mindful of the time. It's around 4:30 and India time, and we wanted to close in time. Uh, Want to thank Minal first. You are amazing, I must say. You are very young, but the perspective that you bring is very mature, right? So it doesn't need to be a Gen X or baby boomer for someone to be matured. A Gen Z can bring a lot of maturity in the thought. So you are absolutely amazing and wonderful. Thank you for joining in. And Geeta and Shishir, thank you for bringing your perspective. And Shishir, especially your global perspective was very, very helpful. And Geeta, your experience of different industries that you have worked as a talent leader, those are very practical insights that you brought. So thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot from all of you, and I'm sure we all would carry certain takeaways that will make us a better HR leader, better business leaders to be sensitive to different needs of different generations. And everyone is important, every generation is important, they're right. We need to understand their strengths and leverage it better. That's what the secret sauce is. There's a quick poll that has been shot on the screen. You would see, give your candid feedback of how you felt. It will help us improve the way we are holding these conversations in future as well. So with that, any one quick final one thought from you, Minal? Any one last
Okay.
advice?
Um, I'd just say that generational diversity is a strength in the organization. And for any sort of diversity, open communication is the most important thing. So make sure there's zero retaliation and your employees can come and speak anonymously or non-anonymously to someone in the organization without any fear. If we achieve that, I think we have solved a lot of problems.
Wonderful. Shishir, any final word for this session?
So I think just re-emphasizing on the subject of this conversation, Sajeev, I think while I said that most of the companies or most of the industries do not have a choice, but I think it also on the other hand should be a welcome change for all the companies, saying that yes, there is a lot to learn from the people of the new generation. So I think that that openness in the mind or in the thought process definitely has to be there.
There's a phrase, child is the father of man, right? So you're saying the same thing, right? So we need to
Correct,
learn.
correct. That is
Geeta,
true.
anything from you?
I think I just want to add that every gen is unique. Be able to recognize the uniqueness, appreciate the strengths, and try to make the best of it. That's it.
All right. With that, so Vijay, you can stop sharing. Thank you very much, audience. You are wonderful in terms of adding comment and sharing your thoughts as well. I'm sure I tried to cover most of the questions or the remarks that you brought up into this session. But in case we have missed, so sorry, but we could do as much in the given time. So with that, stay safe and let's stay safe and create a great workplace for everyone, right? Where everyone fits
Thank
in
you.
very well, naturally, right? We don't have to force fit, naturally they fits in. Thank you very much. Bye then.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
team.
right.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Sajeev, and the
Thanks.
panelists. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.